Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart? Not just someone you knew, someone you chose, someone you opened doors for, someone you defended when others doubted them, someone you prayed for, vouched for, built something real with, and they took all of that sincerity you poured into them, and they used it against you. Not with weapons, with whispers, with smiles that were covering calculations, with loyalty that was always temporary, but performed as though it was absolute. And you who believed every word, you didn't see it because you were looking at them with the same clean heart you were offering them. And when it came out, when the truth finally broke through the performance, something in you cracked. Not just the pain of what they did, something deeper than that. The specific, quiet devastation of realizing that what you thought was real was always a performance. That the person you trusted was never quite the person you trusted. That you gave something genuine to someone who was going to exploit it from the beginning. You may have cried about it. You may have stayed silent about it. You may have replayed it at night, not to torture yourself, but because your mind kept searching for the moment you could have caught it, the signal you could have read differently, the version of events where you saw this coming and protected yourself. You didn't miss a signal. They hid it deliberately. But here is the thing that Islam says to you directly, without softening and without delay. In a moment like this, you are not standing alone in what was done to you, what they did to you. The deliberate betrayal of someone who trusted them with sincerity did not go unregistered. It did not pass silently through the universe like something that did not happen. It was seen, it was heard, it was recorded by the one who misses nothing, delays nothing out of inability, and makes no mistakes in accounting. And what is operating in the life of the person who betrayed you right now, what they are carrying inside them in the silences you cannot see, is something Islam describes with a specificity that should permanently settle your heart. They are not at peace. They cannot be at peace. Not because you took something from them. Not because of anything you did in response. Because of what was automatically activated the moment they deliberately harmed someone who trusted in Allah and who turned to Allah in their pain. This is what today is about. 7 dimensions of what Islam reveals about the person who betrayed a true believer. What is happening to them, what they cannot escape, what they lost the moment they made that choice, and what is being built in you in the specific, hidden, spiritually real way through everything they put you through. Stay with this completely, because by the end, the way you think about what happened and the way you think about where you are now will have permanently shifted. 1. The moment they betrayed you, they declared war on someone who has a different defender. Most people think of betrayal as a transaction between two people. Person A trusted person B. Person B violated that trust. Person A is hurt. Person B moves on. End of transaction. But Islam identifies something in this transaction that completely changes the accounting. When the person being betrayed is a believer, someone who submitted to Allah sincerely, who tried to live with honesty and clean intention, the betrayal does not stay between the two people, it rises. The harm done to that sincere heart reaches something beyond the individual. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, narrated that Allah said, "Whoever shows enmity to a friend of mine, I have declared war against him." Reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. Declared war, not "I will be displeased," not "I will note this for the hereafter." I have declared war against him. This is the specific, direct, divine language used for the person who deliberately harms someone who has genuinely oriented themselves toward Allah. And the declaration is immediate, not pending, not conditional, declared in the past tense from the moment the harm was done. Now understand what this means practically for the person who betrayed you. They think they made a decision between themselves and you. They weighed their options, calculated what they could gain from the betrayal versus what they would lose from the relationship, and chose the betrayal. In their mind, this was a human transaction with human consequences. What they did not calculate, what they could not see, was that they were not actually making a decision between themselves and you. They were making a decision that involved a third party they were not considering, and that third party did not agree to be excluded from the accounting. The moment they used your trust against you, they stepped into something they had no capacity to fully comprehend, not because you are specially protected above all others, but because every sincere believer, every person who genuinely turns to Allah in submission, carries a relationship with their Creator that functions as a kind of protection, not protection from all difficulty, but protection from being harmed without consequence. When you were hurt, you turned to Allah, maybe in tears, maybe in silence, maybe in sujood in the middle of the night, when you had no words left, and the only thing you could do was put your forehead on the ground and stay there. Whatever form it took, you turned. And when you turned, what you were carrying went with you. Your pain, your confusion, your loss of something you genuinely valued, all of it placed in the hands of the one who was already watching what had been done to you. And the person who did it, they stepped into a consequence that has nothing to do with your reaction, your response, your words, or your choices. They stepped into the divine response to the harm they chose to inflict on someone who belongs to Allah. That response has already begun, whether you see it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, whether the world around them can observe it or not, it has begun. 2. What leaves the moment the betrayal is complete here is something that the betrayer does not understand in the moment they make their choice, and something that takes time, sometimes a long time, to become visible from the outside. The moment they betrayed you, something left them. Not something dramatic, not a visible collapse, not a public unraveling, not a sudden change that anyone around them would immediately identify as consequence. Something quieter than that, something internal. Something that only they feel, and only in the moments when the noise of their life goes quiet enough that they cannot drown it out. Their peace, not peace in the generic sense, something more specific, the specific interior ease that belongs to a person who is living in alignment with their conscience. The sense of okayness that comes from having been honest, from having treated people correctly, from having looked in the mirror at the end of the day and not flinched. When you betray someone, genuinely betray them, deliberately, while knowing what you were doing, that ease does not survive the decision intact. The Quran speaks about the heart of the hypocrite, the person who presents one face while concealing another, who speaks loyalty while carrying disloyalty, and describes something specific about what this choice does to the interior life. It creates a state the Quran calls disease in the heart, not metaphorical. The Arabic is specific. There is a corruption in the interior, a rot that begins when a person makes the deliberate choice to be one thing outwardly and something else within. In their hearts is disease, so Allah has increased their disease, and for them is a painful punishment, because they habitually used to lie. Surah Al-Baqarah 2 verse 10. Allah increased the disease, not simply noted the disease, increased it. The condition of the heart that chooses betrayal is not static. It does not stay at the level it reached when they made the decision. It deepens, it expands. The rot that began with one choice spreads into their other relationships, into how they experience closeness, into whether they can actually trust the people around them. Here is the terrible irony of what the betrayer does to themselves. By choosing to be untrustworthy, by demonstrating to themselves that they will violate trust when it is inconvenient or beneficial to do so, they permanently alter their ability to fully trust anyone else, because they now know from the inside, from direct personal experience of their own choices, what people are capable of doing behind closed doors, what smiles can conceal, what promises can hide. They know this because they are this, and so every relationship they enter after you, every new friendship, every new loyalty they are offered, they receive it through the filter of someone who knows that this is not necessarily what it appears to be. Not because the new people are deceptive, because they, themselves, were, and they cannot unknow that about themselves. The specific peace of being able to genuinely receive love and loyalty and trust, of opening to it fully without the whisper of suspicion. That peace is harder after what they chose to do to you. Not impossible, not permanently foreclosed, but harder, requiring a reckoning with themselves that most people who betrayed someone avoid having, which means the hardness does not diminish with time, it tends to increase. They may appear to move on. They may build new friendships, new relationships, new contexts where no one knows what they did to you. From the outside it may look like they escaped, but inside, in the quiet, they are living with something they cannot deposit elsewhere. The weight of the choice they made, and the specific internal knowledge of who they showed themselves to be when it counted. That is not peace, that is the performance of peace. And there is a significant difference between the two. 3. The dua that has no ceiling. This is the dimension of what happened to you that changes everything about how you carry it. When you were hurt, when you were genuinely wronged by someone who violated your trust deliberately, something was activated in your relationship with Allah that does not belong to ordinary prayer. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Beware of the dua of the oppressed, for there is no barrier between it and Allah." Reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. No barrier. Not Allah considers it carefully. Not Allah will respond in His own time to general prayer. No barrier. The prayer of someone who has been genuinely wronged, whose heart is clean, who did nothing to deserve what was done to them, who is calling out from a place of real pain caused by real injustice, goes directly, without obstacle, without delay in the reaching. Now think about what you did when this happened to you. Maybe you cried in sujood. Maybe you sat in the dark and just said, "Ya Allah." Maybe you did not even have words, just the raw interior reaching of someone who had been genuinely hurt and had nowhere else to take it. Maybe you asked for justice. Maybe you asked for clarity. Maybe you just needed Allah to know what had been done to you. Maybe the only thing you could form in your state was, "You saw this, you know." That was enough. That dua, in whatever form it took, however incomplete or fragmented or emotionally messy it was, went through. No barrier, directly. And what was placed in the hands of Allah in that moment was not just your pain. It was the full, documented, witnessed account of what was done to you, your sincerity, their deception, the specific gap between what they presented and what they were actually doing. Every whisper they made about you behind your back, every conversation they had while smiling at your face, every calculation they made that used your trust as a resource to be exploited. Allah received all of it, not as a report to be filed, as a petition from someone He considers His own, someone who turned to Him in genuine need, demanding response. And the response that follows the dua of the oppressed is not the same as the response that follows ordinary prayer. Ordinary prayer, however sincere, however consistent, is answered on Allah's timeline and in Allah's form, which may not match what we asked for or expected. But the prayer of the oppressed carries a specific, documented weight in the Islamic tradition that places it in a different category. The Prophet, peace be upon him, made this explicit. The dua of the oppressed is answered, even if the person is a sinner, because it is between him and Allah. Reported in Sunan at-Tirmidhi. Even if the oppressed person has their own shortcomings, even if their own record is imperfect, the specific wrong done to them, the oppression they experienced at the hands of someone who chose to harm them, that injustice is addressed regardless of who the person is. You do not need to be a perfect Muslim for your pain to matter to Allah. Your sincerity is enough. Your genuine turning is enough. The clean intention behind the trust you gave them is enough. And the specific, direct, barrier-free nature of the prayer you made from your wounded place, that reached. It always reaches. What has been placed in Allah's hands cannot be recalled by the person who caused it. They cannot pray it away. They cannot negotiate around it. They cannot undo it with good behavior toward other people or charitable works elsewhere. The specific account of what they did to you, witnessed, recorded, responded to, is running. And it will run until its completion. In whatever form and on whatever timeline Allah determines to be the most precise form of justice. Your job is not to manage that process. Your job was to turn to Allah in your pain. You did that. The rest belongs to Him. 4. Why their nights are not what they look like. You may have looked at them in moments, on their social media, through reports from mutual people, and seen what looked like someone doing fine, moving forward, not burdened, possibly even thriving. And in that looking, something hurt that was different from the original betrayal, a secondary wound, the sense that maybe it did not cost them what it cost you, that maybe they escaped clean while you were left to rebuild, that maybe the accounting you believed in is not actually as real as the Quran and the Sunnah say it is. I want to address this directly and honestly, because it deserves to be addressed with clarity rather than comfortable evasion. There is a distinction that Islam makes between the outer condition of a person's life and the inner condition of their soul. And these two things are not always or even usually aligned. A person can have visible success, active social life, apparent confidence, regular income, and new relationships, and simultaneously be carrying something in the interior that none of those external things touch. Something the Quran describes in a way that should permanently reframe how you read the visible lives of people who have wronged others. And do not be deceived by the movement of those who disbelieve throughout the land. Brief enjoyment, then their refuge is hell, and what a wretched resting place. Surah Ali Imran 3, 196 to 197. The movement, the visible activity, the apparent momentum of a life that looks like it is going somewhere. Do not be deceived by it. This verse is specifically about those who chose wrongdoing and appear to be benefiting from it. The movement is real, the activity is real, but what it is built on and where it leads is the point. Now apply this more specifically to what the Islamic tradition says about the person who has done genuine wrong to a believer. When the barakah leaves a person's life, it does not announce itself. The income does not necessarily stop. The relationships do not necessarily collapse. The social life does not necessarily fall apart. What changes is the quality of everything they have, the ease within it, the sweetness that makes things feel worth having. The money arrives, but the peace it buys keeps costing more and delivering less. The relationships feel active, but the closeness that should be inside them somehow keeps remaining at a distance. The laughter happens, but something is not quite right underneath it, and they cannot identify what is missing or where it went. The nights come, and the body is tired, but the sleep does not settle deeply, and the dreams are uneasy, and the morning comes with something heavy, already pressing before any of the day's actual demands have arrived. This is not dramatic. It is not obvious from the outside, but it is consistent, it is persistent, and it is precisely the kind of spiritual consequence that follows the deliberate betrayal of someone who turned to Allah in their pain. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, described a specific type of person who appears outwardly well, while inwardly experiencing something quite different. Someone who prays, but whose prayer does not ascend, who gives, but whose giving does not purify, who moves through the forms of religious life, but finds no peace in any of it. Because the interior condition, the disease that took root through deception and betrayal, is interfering with the very practices that would otherwise provide relief. They are not sleeping the way it looks. They are carrying what they did in the quiet. In the specific silence that exists right before sleep, when there is nothing left to do and no performance to maintain, and the mind settles into what is actually true about who you are and what you have done. In that silence, what was done to you does not disappear. It is there, named or unnamed, acknowledged or pushed aside, but there. You are not imagining the justice. It is operating, just not in the visible, public, obvious form that the human desire for vindication tends to hope for. It is operating in the interior, in the place where they cannot show you what they are carrying, and where they cannot show the world, and where the performance of being fine costs them something they are paying without being able to name the cost. 5. The trust they broke was not only with you. There is a dimension of what they did that most people who have been betrayed do not fully receive at first. It takes time to see it clearly. But when you see it, it permanently changes how you understand the weight of what happened. They did not only break trust with you, the Quran says, "O you who believe, do not betray Allah and the Messenger, or betray your trusts while you know the consequence." Surah Al-Anfal 8:27. Betray your trusts. The Arabic word is amana, a divine trust, a sacred responsibility, something that was given to be held with care. When someone is given access to your loyalty, your openness, your sincerity, when you extend the specific kind of trust that only comes from genuinely believing someone is who they present themselves to be, that is an amana, a sacred thing, entrusted. And when they took that sacred thing and weaponized it, used your trust as a resource rather than honoring it as a gift, they did not only violate a social contract between two people, they violated the Islamic understanding of what human trust is for. This matters because of what it means for the spiritual condition of the person who betrayed you. A person who violates amana, who takes what was entrusted to them and does harm with it, rather than honoring it, is described in the Islamic tradition with a very specific and serious language. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The signs of the hypocrite are three. When he speaks, he lies. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he is entrusted, he betrays." Reported in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Three signs. Not three separate things that happen occasionally in everyone's life. Three consistent patterns that, together, define a specific type of interior corruption. When he is entrusted, he betrays. This is not merely a personality flaw. It is not simply a social failing. The Islamic tradition places the betrayal of trust in the same category as systematic dishonesty, the speech that consistently lies, the promise that consistently breaks. Because betrayal of trust is not accidental. It is not the product of confusion or weak character in a single moment. It is a deliberate choice made by someone who was in a position of trust and chose not to honor it. And a person who carries that pattern, who has shown themselves to be someone who uses trust as a tool rather than honoring it as a responsibility, has a specific problem in their relationship with Allah that goes beyond what they did to you specifically. They cannot be fully honest in their prayer because honesty in prayer requires honesty about oneself. And someone who knows from direct experience of their own choices that they are not trustworthy has a very difficult time approaching Allah with the kind of interior clarity that genuine prayer requires. They cannot make a sincere commitment in any relationship to their spouse, their family, their friends, their colleagues, without some part of them knowing that they have already demonstrated what their commitments are worth under pressure. They cannot receive love fully because they know from the inside that they are not giving what they are presenting. This is not punishment imposed from outside. This is the natural, organic, self-generated consequence of the interior corruption that the betrayal both revealed and deepened. They did not just hurt you, they hurt themselves in the specific, sustainable, permanent way that only the person doing the hurting can do. You, on the other hand, you who were the sincere one, the one who gave real trust to someone who used it poorly, you did not corrupt your own interior. You gave something genuine. It was exploited. But what you gave was clean, and what they took from you did not take the cleanliness with it. The sincerity that allowed them to betray you is still yours, intact, available for the relationships that are actually worth it. 6. The specific way Allah defends the one who was wronged here is what you need to understand about how divine justice actually operates, not as a theological concept, but as a living reality with practical, observable dimensions. The Quran says, "Indeed, Allah defends those who have believed." Surah Al-Hajj 22:38. Defends. Present tense, active. Now, not will defend eventually, not is considering their case. Defends. The believers have a relationship with a God who takes the cause of the sincere as his own cause, not because you are perfect, not because your record has no blemish, but because your heart genuinely oriented toward Him, and because what was done to you was done in violation of everything He commands between human beings. And the defense Allah provides for the believer who has been genuinely wronged is not always the defense we would design if we were choosing the form. We would choose public exposure, a moment where everyone who doubted you suddenly sees clearly who was right and who was wrong. A dramatic reversal where the person who walked away looking good is revealed in front of the people who matter to be exactly what your pain knew them to be. Sometimes that happens, not always. What Allah's defense more consistently produces is something longer lasting and more complete than public vindication in a single moment. He defends your reputation in the hearts of the right people, the ones who matter for your actual life, not the ones who believed the performance, but the ones who will actually be in your future. These people over time come to know who you are through the quality of your character, rather than the quality of someone's narrative about you. And character, consistently expressed over time, tells a story that no false narrative can permanently override. He defends your inner life, your peace, your sense of worth, your ability to trust and give again without being permanently damaged by what was done to you. This is perhaps the most significant form of defense, that the betrayal does not become the thing that defines you, does not reduce you to someone smaller than you were before, does not permanently compromise your ability to be the person you were created to be. He defends your future, arranging what comes next in a way that accounts for what you went through. The Quran says something that the believer who has been betrayed should place close to their heart and keep there. And it may be that you dislike a thing while it is good for you, and it may be that you love a thing while it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you do not know. Surah Al-Baqarah 2 verse 216. What He removes from your life, including the people He removes from it through betrayal, is not only loss. Sometimes the removal is protection. Sometimes the person who showed themselves to be untrustworthy was carrying something that, had the relationship continued, would have cost you more than the betrayal cost you. Sometimes what felt like the worst thing that could happen was Allah protecting you from something worse. This is not a comfortable thing to receive in the middle of the pain. In the middle of the pain, what you feel is loss. The loss of what you believed you had. The loss of the person you thought they were. The loss of the future you thought that relationship was building toward. But with time, and with the specific clarity that emerges after the immediate pain has settled, the question worth asking is, what were they actually contributing to your life? Not what you believed they were contributing, what was actually there. And when the answer to that question is examined honestly, many people discover that the contribution was always less than the cost, that they were giving more than they were receiving, that the relationship required more of them than it gave back, and that the betrayal, while devastating, actually clarified something about the arrangement that had always been true. Allah's defense includes this clarification, and the clarification, however painfully delivered, is mercy. 7. What the Quran promises about every hidden account. There is a verse in the Quran that should live permanently in the memory of everyone who has ever watched someone walk away from causing harm as though nothing happened. So whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. Surah Az-Zalzala 99:7-8. An atom's weight, not a significant wrongdoing, not a major betrayal. An atom, the smallest measurable unit of action, of intention, of choice, of deliberate harm, is not too small to be recorded, not too small to be seen, not too small to be accounted for. The specific lie they told about you, even the one that was never disproven, even the one that some people still believe, is there. The specific conversation they had about you behind your back, while they were still performing friendship to your face, that is there. The specific calculation they made when they decided that what they could gain from betraying you was worth more than what they had been given by your trust. That choice and the intention behind it and the harm it caused, all of it is there. An atom's weight. Nothing is too small to be in the account. And here is the specific comfort this should provide in moments when you look at them and wonder if anything is actually being tracked. You are not the one keeping the account. That is precisely why you can release it. If you were the one who had to track every harm, respond to every injustice, manually ensure that every wrong was corrected, the task would be impossible, and the attempt would consume you. The obsession with ensuring justice is served would do more damage to your own life than the original betrayal. But you are not the accountant. Allah is. And He is not outsourcing the tracking to your emotional availability or your capacity to force outcomes. The account is running. Every entry is there. And the account will be settled. In this life, in some form, in the next life completely, in ways so comprehensive and so precise that not a single atom's weight will be missing. This is not passive. This is not merely hoping that things work out eventually. This is the specific, documented, Quranic promise from the Creator of justice about how justice operates. It operates completely. It operates accurately. It operates on a timeline that belongs to Allah and not to your understandable desire to see it resolved immediately. There is something the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that should permanently reframe what the absence of visible, immediate consequences means. He said, "Indeed, Allah gives respite to the oppressor, but when He seizes him, He does not let him escape." Reported in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Gives respite, allows time. The delay is not forgetting. The delay is not mercy extended to someone who betrayed a believer. The delay is a form of divine patience that has a specific, documented ending point. When you see them moving forward apparently unimpeded, you are not seeing proof that the account was not registered. You are seeing the respite period. And the respite period has boundaries that only Allah knows. What happens when those boundaries are reached? What form the settling takes? What the specific manifestation of the accounting looks like? That is between them and Allah. Your position is clear. You were wronged sincerely. You turned to Allah in your pain sincerely. You chose not to lower yourself to revenge or consumed obsession. And in that choosing, you have done everything that was yours to do. The rest belongs to the most precise, most just, most comprehensive accountant in existence. Not a single atom's weight will be missing from that settlement. What is being built in you that they cannot take here is the dimension of this that most people resist receiving in the middle of their pain. But it is the dimension that, when it finally lands, changes everything about how the experience is carried. The betrayal that was done to you is building something. Not because suffering is automatically good. Not because pain is noble in itself. Not because you should be grateful for what happened or minimize how genuinely wrong it was. It was wrong. Fully, completely, undeniably wrong. Nothing in what follows is meant to soften that fact. But something is happening in you through this that would not have happened without it. The Quran says, "And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient, those who, when disaster strikes them, say, 'Indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return.' Those are the ones upon whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is those who are the rightly guided." Surah Al-Baqarah 2, 155 to 157. Blessings, mercy, rightly guided. These are the things that flow to the one who receives genuine difficulty with patience and genuine turning to Allah. Not just endurance, not just surviving what happened, active, chosen patience, the specific decision to place what cannot be controlled in Allah's hands and to keep moving forward with faith intact rather than shattered. Think specifically about what this trial has produced in you that was not there before. You now know something about the depth of your own character that you could not have known without being tested at this depth. You know what you do when you are genuinely hurt, whether you collapse into bitterness or whether you find, somewhere under the pain, the capacity to keep going. You know whether your faith was only ever easy weather faith or whether it has roots that hold even when the storm is real. You know the specific faces of the people in your life who showed up when things were hard. Not the ones who were there when you were easy to be around. the ones who were there when you were broken and needed someone to stay. That knowledge about who those people actually are is one of the most valuable pieces of information a human being can have, and you have it now in a way you did not have it before this happened. You know the specific limitations of placing your security in any human relationship. Not as cynicism, not as "I will never trust again," which is just pain wearing the costume of wisdom, but as realistic maturity, the understanding that other people, however sincere, however good their intentions, are limited, that no human being can be your foundation the way Allah can be your foundation. And that discovering this through the failure of a human relationship, while painful, is infinitely better than arriving at the end of your life having never fully understood it. And perhaps most importantly, you have the specific closeness to Allah that can only be produced by genuine need. The nights of prayer that came from a broken place, the honesty with Allah that emerged when there was nothing left to perform for anyone, the quality of dependence that only develops when everything you were depending on besides Allah has been shown to be insufficient. That closeness is yours now, and they cannot take it from you. The same betrayal that took something from your life gave you something in your relationship with Allah that comfortable seasons would never have required you to build. This is the specific, precise mercy that can hide inside the worst experiences. Not the mercy of having been spared, the mercy of having been brought through pain to a deeper version of yourself and a deeper relationship with your Creator. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "No fatigue, nor disease, nor sorrow, nor sadness, nor hurt, nor distress befalls a Muslim, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah expiates some of his sins for it." Reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. Even the prick of a thorn. What about what happened to you? What about the specific, sustained, deliberately caused pain of someone you trusted choosing to betray that trust? What about the sleepless nights and the confusion and the grief of losing what you thought you had? All of it is in the account. All of it is being translated into something you cannot see from inside the pain, into expiation, into elevation, into the specific reward that belongs to the person who endures genuine injustice with their faith intact and their character uncompromised. You may not see the translation happening, but it is happening, precisely, completely, with the same comprehensiveness that the atom's weight verse promises for evil, applied equally to every atom's weight of patient suffering carried for the sake of Allah. Your pain was not wasted, it was invested. 9. What to do with all of this? After everything we have covered today, the question that naturally follows is, what do you do with this? Not in a motivational sense. Practically, what does a person who understands all of this actually do differently? First, release the burden of managing their accounting. The single most expensive thing a betrayed person can do to themselves is to take personal ownership of ensuring the consequences reach the betrayer. The obsessing, the watching for signs of their downfall, the telling the story to more and more people, the replaying. All of this is you attempting to do something that Allah has already taken responsibility for. And in the attempt, you are not hurting them. You are keeping yourself tethered to them. You are giving them continued occupation in your interior long after they have moved on from any thought of you. Hand it over, not as passivity, as an active, deliberate choice to trust the accountant who has never missed a single atom. Say it honestly to Allah, "I am placing this with you. I trust you to handle what I cannot handle and to settle what I have no power to force." And then let the case genuinely leave your hands. Second, protect what the betrayal did not take: your character, your capacity for genuine trust, your ability to love people properly, your faith, your specific, built through difficulty closeness to Allah. These things survived what happened to you. They are intact, and they are precisely what you need for everything coming next. The betrayal would achieve its maximum possible damage if it turned you into someone who can no longer trust, can no longer love generously, can no longer give their real self to people. That transformation would mean the person who hurt you succeeded in harming not just your past, but your future. Do not let them succeed at that. The best protection against that outcome is not to harden your heart. It is to give it, carefully and selectively, to the right people. To trust Allah's guidance in recognizing who those people are. And to keep choosing sincerity, even though sincerity has cost you something real. Third, pay attention to what Allah is replacing. When one thing is removed from a life, even forcibly, even painfully, space is created. And Allah is not careless with the spaces He creates in believers' lives. What comes into the space that was occupied by the person who betrayed you? What relationships? What opportunities? What clarity? What peace? Pay attention to that. Because often what arrives is something that could not have arrived while the old thing was still in place. Something better suited to who you actually are and where you are actually going. This is not a promise that the replacement will be immediate. It may take time, but the Quran's promise is not conditional on the speed. Indeed, with hardship will be ease. Surah Ash-Shar 94:6. With not after. The ease is already accompanying the hardship, even when it is not yet visible. And fourth, keep your prayer honest. The dua of the oppressed has no barrier between it and Allah. Keep making it, not obsessively, not in place of moving forward, but consistently, genuinely, from the actual place of where you are. Tell Allah what you feel. Tell Him what you hope for. Tell Him what you need. Tell Him that you are trusting Him with what you cannot manage yourself. And then move, not as a performance of having resolved something that is still being processed, but as a real expression of the trust you are placing in the one who manages what you cannot. The person who did this to you does not have the last word. They made their choice. You are making yours. And the two choices are not equal in what they produce. Not in this life, and certainly not in what comes after it. What this all means for you right now. You were betrayed by someone you trusted. That is true. It happened. The pain was real. The loss was real. The specific grief of discovering that what you thought was a relationship was actually a performance. That grief is genuinely one of the harder things a human being carries. And none of what Islam says about what follows for the betrayer removes any of that from being true. But alongside what is true about your pain is something else that is equally true. You did not deserve what was done to you. The trust you gave was genuine. The sincerity you offered was real. The heart you opened to them was clean. And what you gave them, what they chose to use against you rather than honor, was not a weakness. It was exactly the kind of character that Allah loves in His servants. A giving character, a trusting character, a character that takes people at their word and assumes the best until the worst is proven. That character did not fail. It was exploited by someone whose own character was insufficient to honor it. And the accounting, the complete, precise, atom's weight accounting of what was done to you and what was given by you and what was broken and what it cost, that accounting is running, has been running since the moment the betrayal was complete, will continue to run, with the specific comprehensiveness and justice that only Allah can execute, until it is fully settled. They cannot outrun it. They cannot negotiate around it. They cannot build enough of a new narrative or enough of a new life to escape what is being processed in the invisible register that Allah keeps. And you who were the sincere one, who gave something real, who turned to Allah in your pain and trusted Him with what you could not manage yourself, you are not on the wrong side of this. The Quran says, and Allah would not punish them while they seek forgiveness. Surah Al-Anfal 8:33. You were the one seeking. You were the one turning. You are the one who placed this with Allah and kept walking. That is not a small thing. That is the specific, precise posture that the tradition identifies as belonging to the people on the right side of divine justice. Keep walking. Keep your heart clean. Keep your prayer honest. Keep giving people the best of yourself. Carefully, wisely, with the maturity that experience has now given you about who actually deserves the best of you. And trust this with your whole heart. The ones who wronged you will not sleep in peace. not because you need them to suffer, not because your healing requires their punishment, but because that is what is true, because Allah does not allow the deliberate harm of a sincere believer to pass without consequence, and because He designed the human conscience to carry the weight of what it chose to do, even when the person carrying it works very hard to pretend otherwise. They are already carrying it, and you are already being rebuilt, already being elevated, already being brought through the specific, difficult, growth-producing path of this betrayal toward a version of yourself and a closeness to Allah that comfortable seasons could never have produced. They did not win. They lost the most trustworthy thing they ever had access to. They lost it by choice, and what they gained, whatever it was they thought they were gaining, they gained it in exchange for their peace, their spiritual connection, and the specific interior ease that can only belong to someone who has kept their amana clean. That is a loss they will feel every day for the rest of their lives.